Hello, 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 everyone. I'm Andrew Hochradel. I am your host and guide today to this challenge, which is the Magical Holiday Brushes Challenge. It's going to be a great time here in Adobe Photoshop. Now, if you're new or have never joined us before, that's fine. Welcome to Photoshop. It's going to be a great time, and we are going to learn so much. Chat, you're up over here, so say hi. Hello, chat. Hi. We are going to be hanging out and learning the magic of brushes here in Photoshop. So if you want to, you can grab the source file that is down at the link below me. If you're watching this, it may not be uploaded yet. We're having some Dropbox issues today. So if it's not there when you're watching this live, that's fun. Fine. In the future, you can probably grab it. But if you want to, you also can just download an image off of Adobe Stock. We're going to be using Adobe Stock a couple times today. So you can just grab an image, open it in Photoshop, and then work along with me. All right. So we have this happy couple here, or maybe they're brothers and sisters. Who knows? But we are going to be making it a little more snowy, right? We've got a little bit of snow here, but I want to create a brush that looks like the snow is falling down. And yes, Robert's saying the starter file is not in there. Yes, we are working on it. Dropbox is having some issues. We're working on it. You can just grab off of Adobe Stock, grab a photo, and you can actually do that. stock.adobe.com/free. That's a hack. Search for just people out in winter. And you can follow along with me with an image here. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Let's create a custom brush. Now, if you've worked with Photoshop before, you've probably worked with layers, and you can click right here on the little plus to create a new layer. And then we're going to grab our brush tool, which is right over here, brush tool. And we want to add some snow. So with the brush tool, we just click. That's not right? That's not how we do it. So what we want to do is we want to set our parameters and tell Photoshop what we want this brush to look like and what we want this brush to do. So the first thing is I definitely want it to be white and not yellow. So we can change right here the color to white, and that is going to allow us to paint in white. All right, step one. Step two, it's a little bit too hard edged. We want it to be a little bit softer on the edge, right? A little bit more flowy for that snow. So we're going to right click, and this is a great hack. If you're using Photoshop, you don't have to go into your brush settings. You don't have to open anything. You can just right click with your brush open, and it's going to open up this panel. So we're just going to go to general brushes right here and see soft round. We're going to select that one, and check this out. Look at, there we go. Snow, giant snow that is very, very close to the camera is as far as we've gotten. Now, we're getting somewhere, but we're not quite there. What we're going to do is we are able to augment the way that brushes work. So I'm just hitting Control Z there to undo it. If you're new to Photoshop, you can go to Edit and Undo, but I'm doing Control Z to undo. So we are going to go ahead and play around with different pieces of this brush. Now there's a lot of settings that you can play around with in Photoshop to give you different uses and different settings with your brushes. So we're going to come up here to our brush panel, and it's going to open up our brush settings. So you can see here what that brush is going to look like. So right now it's a very, very soft brush, and we want to play around with some of the different elements of this. So the first is that we want to change the spacing. Right now it's very, very close. And as I drag this, you'll see that it's kind of just creating a repeated brush line. So as I pull the spacing out, you'll see that it's starting to separate those pieces, right? This is starting to get a little bit more like what we want, right? We have little dots starting to look a little more snowy. So we're going to space that out. And the next is we want to go down to shape dynamics. So in this panel, you can play around with all of these different settings and where your hardness is. Maybe we want it to be a little bit softer. Maybe we want a little bit of hardness. Sure, in the middle, right? Just have a nice little core to the snow. So you can play around with these settings here and then click through all of these. I'm going to take you through a couple of them. We're not going to go through all of them today. There's a lot to happen in here. So let's go ahead and go to shape dynamics and then look at these jitters. So this is what we want. The size jitter, we want all these snowflakes to be different sizes, right? So as I click here, you'll see now as I start to pull it through, it's changing the size of that. There we go. That's what we want. And now we've got these kind of magical orbs, which maybe we'll put some of those in there as well. Minimum diameter is 0. That's fine. Angle jitter. This is going to allow us to kind of shift where the snowflakes go, right? So maybe they'll fall. And right now, they are fully round. And we don't want them to be fully round. We want them to maybe be at angles or look like ovals. And so as we change the roundness jitter right here, it is going to give us those little like falling snowflake pieces that will look a little more like a falling snowflake. So now as I drag, you'll see, right? We have like these nice little pieces of snow that are flurrying around, right? Let it go. So we're going to change the angle jitter maybe a little bit more. And maybe I do want them to be a little more, there we go, round. All right, I think that's good. So play around with these sliders until you get one that looks a little bit like that kind of falling snow look. Now, we want to add in a little bit more scattering. And this is going to allow us to make it look a little bit more random. So we're going to click on scattering right here. And we're going to open this up. And as you can see, it's starting to scatter all over the place. So we're going to scatter that. We also are going to change the count. That will give us a little bit more or less of those snowflakes. And then the count jitter is basically going to change how many of the count. It's like jittering on the amount of the count. So the amount of the count. So you can see now as I start to click through and drag these in, it is both doing the angle, it's doing the jitter, it's doing the different sizes, it's doing the different amounts because we are telling it in this brush settings to do all that. Now the next thing I want to add is when I do this, right now it doesn't really look super like snowflakey. I want to add a little bit of texture. So what we can do is we are going to go in right here to texture. And by clicking here, we can look through the different textures that we have. And we have trees, grass, we have water. And maybe I do want to do kind of a watery texture on these snowflakes. I'm going to change the scale to be a little bit smaller and kind of play around with the contrast and the brightness. There we go. Maybe contrast this. There we go. So it just has like that weird edge. And then maybe we want to also play around with, I think that's probably fine. Maybe a little bit of depth jitter. All right. I'm not mad about this. I think that that looks pretty good. Not mad about it. So now what I can do is I can click and you can see now that we're getting this like water texture over it. Actually, I'm not super crazy about this. This is looking kind of wild. I don't know if I want to have this specific texture on there. Let's try, you know what? We might not put any pattern on this. I don't love it. I don't love it, chat. Not a big fan. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna turn off the texture here, and we're going to use a couple other different techniques to get that texture. So now we've created this custom brush. We're able to kind of play around and push it down into our document, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm just going to shrink this down a little bit in size. And then as we click and drag down, look at that. We've got kind of this falling snow piece coming down with this brush. And we're just gonna do this over the different area here. And what I'm doing is I'm clicking and then I'm holding shift and going down to the bottom. And what that does is it's just going to draw a straight line between the first click and the last click. So I'm kind of just clicking and dragging these around here. There we go. And one more here. And I'm just, again, click at the top and then click at the bottom. Now, it's looking a little bit too intense for me, but that's fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of like subtlety to this. And so what we can do is we could take the opacity down a little bit, but what I think I want to do is I think I want to add in a little bit of noise just to give it a little bit of like something different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to filter, we are going to go to noise, and we are going to add noise. And as I bring this up, you'll see that it's just kind of adding that noise into our snow. So I just want maybe a little bit of noise here. Maybe I want like 1%. Let's try maybe 3%. There we go. And that's giving us a little bit of noise. If we zoom in here, you can see it's just got a little bit of noise there. And something else that I want is I see this snow in the background, right? Is I want it to kind of hit that angle. And so let's go ahead and add a little bit of a blur. We actually can do another layer under this and then blur that to give it a little bit of motion. So we're gonna click here on the plus, and then I'm going to just do a quick kind of click and drag out. And this is gonna give us a little bit more snow that is kind of falling at that angle. So now we have this other snow, right, that's now coming through. So it's looking a little more blizzardy. And something else that I want to do is I actually want this snow to be behind these people. Now, Adobe Photoshop does a really great job at finding people. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select this, and I'm going to go to select subject, and it should find the people here for me. And I'm going to use a mask to mask out. Hello, perfect, got him. Oh, we missed a little piece right there, but that's okay, we can fix that. We're going to go in here with our quick selection tool, and I'm just going to hold shift and then click over and drag over where it kind of missed her and her hand. Get that. All right, so now we got our people. Great. And someone's saying, wouldn't you add a bit of motion blur as well? Yes, that's exactly what we're doing. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here to this snow layer that is kind of above them. And we're going to click here to mask it, and that masked it into our selection. And then we're just going to hit Control or Command I to invert it. And now we have that snow behind those people. So here is where I want to add that blur by going to Filter, Blur, and then we're going to add in a motion blur. And we're going to put it kind of at an angle here. And you can see as I change this distance, it's starting to pull that kind of snow into a little bit more of that wide angle. There we go. Okay, so now we have some snow in the background at that wide angle, and we have our foreground snow. It's probably a little bit dense, but it's looking okay for me. I am going to change the opacity on this just a little bit to pull it down. There we go. And now they're like in a full-on flurry. It's a little bit too much, but I think that it's okay for now. It is a blizzard that they are in. All right, so one more thing that we want to do is I always like to put something over the top of an entire photo. So let's do that real quick. By adding something on top, it's going to allow us to harmonize all of the colors, right? So you see it's gotten a little bit muddy. And someone's saying I need to add a motion blur as well. Yeah, so I think these ones are probably fine. If we wanted to, I would put in a smaller snowflake and then motion blur that. But I kind of want to show you how to tone this real quick. It's a little bit too muddy, right? With this off, it's nicely exposed. It's a little underexposed for me. But with this on, it's very muddy. Now, I want this to look cold. I want this to look freezing. So what we're going to do is we are going to add in a couple of adjustment layers. So an adjustment layer is right here next to our new layer, and we are going to click here, and then we are going to add in a brightness and contrast layer, right? And I'm just going to bring the brightness up a little bit. There we go. And maybe a little bit more contrast. And there we go. We have this nice brightness. It's really, really making it pop. And I hate that this is like over his face, but that's fine. It's fine. We can deal with it. We'll fix that later. It is a little bit too warm, right? This is feeling like a little bit of a sunny day for me, and I want it to feel cold and frigid. And so what we're going to do is we are going to add in a gradient map on top of all this. Now, there's a million different ways that we could do this, but I like using a gradient map and then using a blending mode to multiply that gradient map on top of our layer. So we're going to click here and go to gradient map. And from there, it's going to black and white. That's fine. Actually, this is kind of romantic. Hold on. This is not a bad shot. It is killing me that there is a snow over his face. So I'm going to go ahead and take this layer right here, which is our snow layer. And I'm going to grab our eraser tool. Super easy. We're going to go to our eraser tool right here. And I'm going to change the opacity of the eraser down to like 30%. And now as I start to click this, you'll see, oh, that was too much. Maybe let's take this down to like 9%. And I also want it to be super soft. There we go. So now as I click through here, you can see that I'm able to just click, and I'm just clicking a bunch of times on their faces, and it's kind of erasing out the area of their faces for the snow. Also, there's some weird toning happening on her mouth. I'm just seeing that. Like, it looks crazy. That's fine. All right, so we erased around their faces so we can really make them pop, which is what we wanted. And now, love this black and white, but that's not what we want. We want to make it cold. Is we are going to click on this gradient map. And what the gradient map is doing is, as you can see, this is like a darker area of the photo, right? And this is a lighter area. It is basically pushing all the darker areas or the darker valued colors into black and the lighter color values into white. In between there, it is doing a grayscale right on that. So it's going back and forth between the gray and the black to the white to convert those colors. But we want the shadows to be like this dark purple, right? I want it to be like a very like deep, rich purple. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the black to this dark purple. And now the whites, I actually want to be a little more blue, right? I want it to feel cool. So I'm going to double click here and then go and change to a nice blue, a very soft blue up here. There we go. So with the gradient map, we've added the gradient map here, and in the darkest colors, we have a purple, and in the lightest colors, we have a nice soft blue. Now, what we can do is usually I'll come through and I will change the blending mode of this gradient map to multiply, right? That makes it very dark, very muddy, but sometimes I like to play around and see what some of the other blending modes will do. So you can just hover over these and it will show you what it's going to look like as they go through. So I actually think some of these lightens are going to look a little bit better for what we want. I think that soft light is going to be good. Ooh, lighter color. I'm not mad about that. So overlay is pretty intense. Soft light is pretty intense. That's giving us the cool that we want. But some of these are a little bit too much. I actually love what's happening with lighter color here. So let's see. Okay, so that's basically just taking down these to like a nice little purple. So you can see better here, right? That it's toning down the black into that purple. Not super crazy about it, but that's fine. Let's do this another way. Again, there's a million different other ways. Usually I would just multiply this. And if you're going to multiply, I usually try to make these a lot lighter. So go into lighter colors here and let's do the purple there. And then let's do the blue way further over here. And then we'll need to increase the brightness on this as well again. There we go. And we've got a little more of that color, but not quite what I want. So we're just going to delete this gradient map and we're going to do it another way. There's, again, a million different ways to do things. The way that we're going to do it is we are going to go down here and we could choose a bunch of different options. We could do curves. We could do hue and saturation. We could do a gradient map. We could do selective color. But what I want to do is we are going to go to curves. Now, curves can be a little bit daunting. Curves is a way to edit your photos and it's going to change the brightness or the values of your color. So you can see right up here, we have curves. And what we want to do is we actually want to take the yellow out of this and put in more blue. So we're going to change our curves and go to blue. And then as I drag this, you can see that we're getting more and more blue. Super easy. So we can put them in like full blue zone. But as you drag this, you can kind of see that it's pulling the blue more into our photo. Now, if you want blue to be more in the lights, which is what we want it to look a little more blue, you can actually pull this up and you're just clicking and dragging to add points on this curve. Now, if I want the blues to be a little bit less in the shadows, right? You can see now it's getting yellow in those shadows. You can pull this down and we'll create what we call an S curve, right? And so I do want it to be blue pretty much overall. Let's see what happens if we pull some yellows in here. I'm not mad about that. I do want it to be cool like this. I think that putting the blues kind of pumped up on the darker portions are going to give it more of that cool kind of crisp day look. But I think that this is looking pretty good and pretty okay to me. Not mad about it at all. Okay, looking good. Love it. We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm going to show you one more thing. And that is we're going to try to create a brush really quick. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, we're going to go to New, and we are going to go to 1000 by 1000. So we're just going to make a new document that is 1000 by 1000, and then we are going to go to Adobe Stock. So I just had it open here, and we are going to do maybe snowflake on black background. And going to Adobe stock.adobe.com/free is going to give you free resources. And here I want to find like one good snowflake on a black background that I can remove. So maybe I want something like, you know what? Maybe I want something like one of these. Actually, I like this one. Ooh, I like this one. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, excuse me. I'm going to license that photo. And then I'm going to bring it over into Photoshop, and we are just going to open this in Photoshop right here. And what I want to do is I am going to remove the background. Just click to remove background. It will remove it. And then we will have a nice kind of clean version of this shape. Not looking super clean, but I can teach you how to do that. Here we go. Watch this. If we want to remove something from a black background, all you need to do is go to Channels. Right here where it has the gray channel, we're going to hold Control and click, it's going to select all of the gray. Then we can Control C or go to Edit Copy. We're going to come back to our 1000, 1000 and Control V or paste. And then we are just going to align it. So we're going to use our alignment tools right here to align it. And then I also need to shrink that down a little bit. So let me zoom out. Is we are going to Control T to transform and then shrink this down. So there we go. So now we have our little brush here, our shape here, and we're going to turn off the background layer and then go to Edit. And someone's saying, can't we remove background now? Yes, you can with something like this. It's a little more nuanced, especially when you're creating a brush. It's easier to do it this way. So here with nothing in the background, we are going to define brush preset, and we are going to call this snow. And now when I come over here to my Photoshop brush, I'm going to make a new layer. And I can just brush in, and you can see that I have that very, very subtle explosion of a brush, right? You can see that that explosion is happening. And if we wanted to, we could come in here and do a lot of the things that we just did, right? We could change the scattering, make it scatter a bit more. We can change the size. We can also change the roundness. We can change the angle of it, make it twist and turn a little bit. Maybe we could also, yeah, let's do that. We can change the count, do a lot more. And now as I start to do this, you can see that we can create that brush and then kind of just click to drag over it. And it's creating this really, really crazy explosion of all those different things. And this could be really cool for like a bokeh effect. If I changed the count, if I took the count down and then we maybe scattered a bit more, right? Imagine that this is kind of just a glow effect, right? We have a nice little glow. We created that brush, and then I can just brush it in here and have that nice little glowing texture over our image. And I think that that actually looks kind of fun. I would go in here and maybe blur it a little bit, just add a little bit of a blur. And now we have this nice little glow. And maybe, you know what? Maybe we change the blending mode to like a soft light. Just add a little bit of texture. And now you can see that we have that little bit of texture over our photo. And so we created a custom brush using the poor count. Yeah, sorry. We use a custom brush, changing those brush settings. And let's just show you the before and after of this photo. So we started with this photo right here. And then we wanted to make sure that we added in some snow. And so we turned on the snow and we created some snow in the background using a custom brush and then blurred it and then removed our people with a layer mask. Then we added snow in front using the shape dynamics and custom brush settings. From there, we wanted to pump it up a little bit. So we changed the brightness, made it a little bit brighter. Then we added some curves and made it a lot more blue and not a lot more cool. And then on top of that, we added a little bit of texture, creating a custom brush from this image, pasting it in and going to Edit and then Define Brush Preset. So right there, super easy. If you want more challenges, you can actually go to behance.net/challenge/Photoshop to get more challenges like the one here today. And I'll be back again next week for another Photoshop Creative Challenge. Stick around. There's more challenges coming up. I believe that there is a video challenge right after me, as well as a Express challenge coming up in just a little while. So thank you so much for joining me. Hopefully you all learned something, and I'll see you again another time for another stream right here in Adobe Photoshop. Bye, everybody.